Welcome back, theorists. So, the most dangerous mind in the Marvel Universe isn't a god or a warlord. It's a psychology professor named Schiller, and he's playing 4D chess with our hero's sanity. He started by dismantling the Bat-Mangordan alliance in Gotham before turning his scalpel, sharp intellect on New York. He exposed Daredevil's raw nerves, deflated Tony Stark's ego, and then aimed the billionaire like a weapon at a naive Peter Parker. After a brutal lesson in an underground fight club, Peter awakens to a harsh mentorship under Daredevil, just as the vigilante is critically injured. At the hospital, a Tridden Peter clashes with Elektra, who believes only forbidden magic can save Matt. The fight leaves Peter with a near-fatal wound and a soul-shattering revelation. Heroism hurts. This crucible of pain is exactly where Schiller wants him. Following a perfectly timed lecture on power and responsibility, Stark reveals his own trauma, the arc reactor born in a cave, driving the lesson home. Heroes, Peter learns, are mortals who forge armor from their own suffering. As a new spider, man is born, Schiller acquires a symbiote, a gray mist born from a cosmic god, proving the Grandmaster has only just begun to move his pieces. Gotham University, Psychology Lecture Hall. Cold light from the fixtures above etched the sharp profile of Professor Schiller's face. He stood at the lectern, his voice devoid of warmth. Regarding this class assignment, I must make special mention of Mr. Robert. His thesis on emotional fission analysis precisely echoes the core of my own research. His gaze swept over the students, a flicker of appraisal in his eyes. Of course, Miss Hoff's paper was the longest, but I must point out that word count does not equate to quality. I would have been more impressed had you dissected your argument with surgical precision in under 3,000 words. The air in the hall grew colder. Schiller's voice resumed, calm but carrying an undeniable weight. Unsurprisingly, one person has once again failed to submit their assignment. Mr. Wayne. He didn't bother to look up, his eyes fixed on the roster, my office, after class. If you have no intention of completing the work, then I suggest you needn't bother with the final exam either. After all, a 0 for your coursework is sufficient to guarantee you forfeit the credits for this course. He snapped the textbook shut. Class dismissed. The afternoon sun attempted to pierce Gotham's perpetual gloom, succeeding only in leaving a weak, gray stain on the windowpane of Professor Schiller's office. Bruce Wayne stood before the massive mahogany desk, an excuse ready on his lips. He began, "Professor, I did finish the paper. I just need my butler to bring the flash drive." Schiller's gaze lifted from the page, sharp enough to bore straight into Bruce's eyes. He cut him off, his voice like ice. "Not having it is the same as not having done it." His knuckles tapped a steady rhythm on the desktop, a dull thud like a countdown. Schiller's voice was low and clear. "You believe there's nothing I can do to Bruce Wayne, and that no one else will be affected. Is that it? The privileges of the Wayne family are, after all, common knowledge." A sardonic smile touched his lips. "But of the hundreds of millions you've donated to this university, not a single cent has found its way into my pocket. So, if you fail to submit another assignment, I will not hesitate to fail you. You will not receive a graduation certificate from my class." Bruce reflexively muttered, "I already have one. The printing press belongs to my family." Schiller closed his eyes and massaged the bridge of his nose, suppressing a wave of irritation. When he opened them again, the topic had shifted seamlessly. "Why am I wasting my breath on a pampered scion like you? Your investigation, how is it progressing?" Bruce's demeanor changed instantly. He leaned forward, bracing his arms on the desk, his brow furrowed. Miss Christine did disappear on campus. We can rule out Jonathan Crane. He was already in custody when it happened. Suspects. Schiller's question was precise. The president of Gotham University, Bruce said, laying out his findings before Schiller could interject. He's our prime suspect. I have no direct evidence he kidnapped Christine, however. The 3 jury members who pushed for Jonathan's acquittal, as well as his defense attorney, all have ties to the Red Crow gang in East Gotham. His pace quickened, the logic unfolding. The president himself is a guest of honor to the gang's boss. They attended the mayor's banquet together. Most critically, his daughter is married to the head of the Red Crows, smuggling and logistics. So what role does Christine play in this? Schiller asked. As I understand it, she's just a pretty, ordinary girl. I suspect she may have inadvertently overheard the president conspiring about Jonathan, Bruce theorized. With the Football League season approaching, Christine, as head cheerleader, went to see the president to get the new season's uniforms approved. Perhaps she heard something she shouldn't have. Evidence. I'm past the point of fixating on evidence. A note of resolve entered Bruce's voice, but I won't approach the president directly. It would tip him off. Schiller's gaze seemed to pierce straight to the heart of the matter. I suspect Christine is still alive. If the president is behind this, he's unlikely to kill her. The cheerleading squad can't replace its captain on short notice, and any disruption to the squad would inevitably affect the football team's performance. That's the one thing Gotham University can be proud of, and a major highlight on the president's resume. Bruce sighed, his voice heavy. Regardless, Miss Christine is innocent. Schiller changed the subject. Have you seen Gordon recently? Any progress on his end? Not good. Bruce shook his head. If I could find Christine and have her testify against that group for deliberately acquitting Jonathan, maybe we could send him where he truly belongs. Have you ever considered, Schiller's eyes grew deep, that the place Jonathan Crane belongs isn't Gotham Prison? Bruce's head snapped up. You want me to build a private prison? Schiller didn't answer. He rose slowly, paced to the window, and stood with his back to Bruce. His voice seemed to emanate from the Gotham shadows themselves. Are you going to repeat this process for every criminal you catch? Or do you find it amusing, this legal circus you run with them through a broken judicial system? With the time you're wasting, you could have purged the gangs not just from the Morrison district, but from the surrounding blocks as well. Bruce, you know better than I what Batman ought to be doing. Bruce left, his mind heavy. Silence returned to the office, broken only by the drumming of rain against the glass. Schiller's thoughts turned to a more practical problem. Once Jonathan was imprisoned, regardless of the facility, his stable source of fear toxin would be severed. It would be a terrible waste for such a useful weapon to simply vanish. Unlike the charging bull that was Batman, Schiller's mind moved with a surgeon's cunning. He knew the best option was neither to force the formula from Jonathan nor to break him out for personal use. Both were fraught with risk and inconvenience. His objective, therefore, was to find Jonathan a new handler. He needed to let someone with more professional resources extract the formula, control the chemist, and begin production. And he, Schiller, would remain in the shadows, stealing the finished product. Those people would hardly use the fear toxin for anything noble, but what did it matter, so long as it never remained in their hands? The plan was elegantly simple, acquisition with zero risk. They would manufacture the toxin, and he, under the cover of his gray fog, would acquire it. Their entire output would become his inventory. Who could possibly trace a phantom? Schiller deduced that, in his current naive state, Jonathan had likely already surrendered the formula. Since this crew was planning something big, the production volume would dwarf Crane's previous small-scale efforts. To mass produce such a sophisticated chemical agent, only one facility in Gotham possessed a suitable production line, Wayne Chemical. No matter their methods, they could not bypass that plant. Night fell, another typical Gotham downpour. Schiller's form melted into the shadows outside the Wayne Chemical plant. As expected, a cargo truck with a license plate ending in 676 slipped like a ghost into the heavily guarded facility. Over the next few days, disguised trucks moved in and out frequently, smuggling out large pieces of equipment. Schiller didn't intervene. He was a patient hunter, tracking the convoy to its final destination, a small chemical plant in East Gotham, deep within the Red Crow Gang's territory. But plans rarely survive contact with reality. The moment the makeshift production line started up, problems emerged. First, they lacked key equipment. The Wayne Chemical line was not, after all, tailor-made for fear toxin. Second, the chemists they hired were nowhere near as brilliant as Jonathan Crane. The toxin they replicated was a pale imitation, its effects severely diminished. They were back at square one. They had to get Jonathan Scarecrow Crane out. After all their effort, the Red Crow Gang couldn't just eliminate him once he'd served his purpose. Schiller's acquisition plan was temporarily on hold. He wasn't discouraged, merely sneering inwardly at the gang's incompetence. Since the Red Crows were useless, he would have to find Jonathan a more powerful patron. His gaze fell upon another power in East Gotham, Sal Maroni. The Maroni family's influence was entrenched in the East, where crime was far more rampant and primal than in the University District to the west. In the East District, the Maroni family controlled a restaurant, 2 bars, a dance hall, and a strip club, a formidable criminal enterprise. Their feud with the Red Crow Gang was long-standing. A bar on the border of their territories was the scene of constant shootouts. Sal Maroni had clawed his way to the top of the East District's underworld through sheer ruthlessness. The Red Crow's theft of a production line had not escaped his notice. At that moment, in the basement of a Maroni-controlled bar, the air was thick with cigar smoke. Maroni lit one, the scarlet tip illuminating his grim face. He spoke to his trusted lieutenant, "My friend, Commissioner Victor, tells me the Red Crows have been making noise." His man bowed slightly. "Yes, boss. They've been smuggling heavy machinery in from the south. I squeezed it out of some gambler that they're trying to produce some kind of chemical that can control people." Sal narrowed his eyes, turning his lighter over and over in his hand, the metallic clicks sharp and dangerous. "I was having dinner with Victor the other day. He mentioned a case, some killer with a Ph.D. in chemistry, a professor from Gotham U. Think there's a connection." A savage grin spread across the lieutenant's face. "I've got 2 of my guys working as bodyguards for the Red Crow boss's mistress. He's been seeing a lot of her lately. I'll get something out of her." Sal slowly exhaled a ring of smoke, his voice as cold as iron. "Every scrap they put on their plate is a scrap taken from ours. But now it seems they don't just want a piece of the pie." A vicious glint flashed in Maroni's eyes. "They want to swallow us whole. In that case, we'll see who has the sharper teeth." Maroni's instincts were terrifyingly accurate. He uncovered the entirety of the Red Crow Gang's plans with almost no effort. The young upstart leader was far too green to compete with an old fox like him. Of course, Schiller's contribution was instrumental. He had performed a single, crucial action, leaving a copy of the fear tox in formula, acquired from the Red Crows, where one of Maroni's informants was certain to find it. Maroney, with his connections to the police commissioner, possessed an influence far beyond the Red Crow gang. He swiftly found a reliable chemist to analyze the formula. The conclusion: it was a biochemical weapon with immense potential for large-scale deployment. The information ignited Maroney's murderous intent. He could not allow the Red Crows to possess such a weapon. If they did, the Maroney family would be finished. The first step was to sever any possibility of them bailing out Jonathan Crane. On another dark, rainy night, Gordon was leaving work. His direct superior, Lantillos, an old-timer who viewed him as a thorn in his side, had effectively demoted him to the department's secretary, denying him even routine patrol duties. Gordon stepped out of the precinct, watching Lantillos's figure disappear around a corner, off to get drinks. In the next instant, the screech of tires tore through the night. An out-of-control car shot around the corner like a black missile, sending Lantillos flying more than 10 meters, his body carving a gruesome arc across the wet pavement. Gordon rushed back into the precinct, screaming for help, but Lantillos had stopped breathing before the ambulance arrived. The cautious old cop, blinded by the Red Crow's money, had let greed make him forget the other hunters lurking in the darkness, their eyes already fixed upon him. It all happened too fast. Before Gordon could recover from the shock, he was elevated into his former superior's position by an unseen hand. This was Maroney's handiwork, of course. To obstruct an opponent, you install the most uncooperative man possible in their path. The entire precinct knew of the friction between Gordon and Lantillos. Maroney had chosen his pawn with precision. Obstruction, however, was only the first step. Maroney coveted the powerful weapon for himself. Bolder than the Red Crows, he went straight to the manager of Wayne Chemical and bribed him, planning to use a nitric acid production line to begin secret, on-site manufacturing. But the problem remained. Mass production required higher-end centrifuges and other specialized equipment. Even with Maroney's deeper pockets, he hesitated at the enormous investment. He had his chemist manually replicate a sample, and the results were impressive. Though it couldn't be concentrated, it had an 80% fidelity to the original formula, with astonishing effects. Maroney witnessed the toxin's power firsthand, and his final hesitation vanished. If he could drive a man insane with a single spray, who in the East District could stand against him? Taking over the entire district and its tens of millions in revenue would be child's play. And so, Maroney poured a fortune into emergency equipment purchases from other states, called in countless favors, and hired a team of chemists at great expense. For production of this scale, Wayne Chemical was no longer secure. He initiated a bloody gang war and, at the cost of more than 30 lives, ripped the small chemical plant from the Red Crow's grasp. It was then that Bruce finally noticed the irregularities at his own factory. He belatedly realized that jackals were already at work, manufacturing that terrible gas within his own company. At the same time, Gordon received an anonymous tip claiming a cargo truck with a license plate ending in 676 was frequently seen near Wayne Chemical. Gordon and Bruce were of one mind. The partnership between the Batman and the righteous detective was forged once more. They moved with lightning speed, locking onto the truck and latching onto the Red Crow gang's trail. Overnight, the Red Crow's nest was dismantled by Batman. Gordon's police cruisers followed close behind to handle the arrests. The entire gang, over 200 members, was taken into custody without a fight. The Red Crow leader was practically insane by the time of his arrest. They had stolen the production line, but hadn't produced a single drop of fear toxin before Maroney had snatched the plant and equipment away. In a fit of extreme rage, he implicated Sal Maroni. Batman's focus immediately shifted to a new target. But Maroni was far more cunning than his predecessor. The entire chemical plant was heavily fortified, its members on high alert. For a time, even Batman could find no opening. Maroni knew he was being watched. He immediately sought help from his protector, Police Commissioner Victor. Victor first quashed the official investigation into the theft at Wayne Chemical from within the department. Then, on Maroni's orders, he continued to interfere with Jonathan's trial, attempting to secure an acquittal so the genius chemist could be put to work for them. And Schiller, observing this tense, multi-sided standoff, added the final, crucial bit of fuel to the fire. Through subtle psychological manipulation, he had Victor acquire a small vial of Jonathan Crane's personally concocted, concentrated fear toxin from the evidence room. When Maroni witnessed the terrifying power of the concentrate, he understood Crane's true value. He began to pressure Victor relentlessly, demanding the chemist's immediate release on bail, no matter the cost. However, before Victor could devise a plan, he received a visitor. The man who came to him was none other than the president of Gotham University. With the fall of the Red Crow gang, the president, who had relied on their protection, was in desperate need of a new patron. He didn't hesitate to throw his lot in with Maroni, laying out his entire original plan. He told Victor, "That girl Christine wasn't discreet. She was bragging to everyone that she was going to be Bruce Wayne's date. I kidnapped her when she came to see me. If we can exert influence over the heir to the Wayne family, using his power to get Jonathan acquitted would be no trouble at all." With a woman, Victor was skeptical. The Wayne kid isn't stupid. Why would a date make him do our bidding? A cold smile spread across the president's face. We don't need him to be willing. You want to kidnap Wayne? No, the risk is too great. We might not be able to control him. Victor immediately objected. The president lowered his voice, his words chilling the air. Actually, I've had a method in mind for some time. We kidnap him, but we don't necessarily have to control him. We could also replace him. While Victor and the president plotted against Bruce, Batman was considering how to bring them all down in one fell swoop. The trials of the past weeks had forged him, and he had come to understand every question Schiller had once posed. He accepted that he was not like the police, not an instrument of the law, but an agent of his own justice. Once he embraced this, Batman's intellect and execution became second to none. He started with the president of Gotham University. The academic lacked Victor's counter-surveillance experience. He was merely a clever man, and therefore an easier target. Late one night, Batman slipped like a phantom into the president's study. He didn't find Christine, but he discovered a few inconspicuous call records on the president's desk phone. He guessed the president would never have handled things personally. The next day, Bruce Wayne, in his student persona, stormed into the president's office, furious that Professor Schiller had failed him on an assignment. During his argument with the president, professional equipment silently captured a sample of the man's voice. Later, using a voice modulator, he dialed the unfamiliar number. Batman's words were precise yet ambiguous. He said only one sentence, "How is she?" The man on the other end, completely unsuspecting, replied, "Sir, we haven't touched her, just like you asked. But she's a pretty little thing. My boys are having a hard time controlling themselves. If anything happens to her, you're finished." Batman responded in a voice of ice. Of course. I'll keep them in line." From those few words, Batman knew he was dealing with low-level thugs. The instant the call ended, a Wayne Tech satellite locked onto the signal's origin. Christine was rescued without incident. Though mentally shaken, she was physically unharmed and agreed to testify against the president. Meanwhile, Gordon was giving Victor a massive headache. To a corrupt veteran like Victor, a stubborn straight, arrow like Gordon, hell, bent on justice, was the most difficult type of person to handle. Gordon kept a death grip on all evidence files related to Jonathan Crane, delaying Victor's every move. Maroney, for his part, was even more unlucky. To increase his sunk costs, Schiller paid regular visits to his chemical plant to engage in a little sabotage. One day, a machine would be missing a few parts. The next, a drainage pipe would be clogged. These seemingly accidental trifles caused massive delays in production, and Maroney's funds bled away like water, with nothing to show for it. Maroney blamed it all on the slow progress of bailing out Jonathan, and he pressured Victor relentlessly. At the end of his rope, Victor went to see the president again, only to find that their key hostage, Christine, was gone. Under immense pressure, they decided to take a desperate gamble: kidnap Bruce Wayne directly. On this day, Schiller was invited to Wayne Manor. After class, Bruce personally drove him in a brilliant blue Lamborghini. The car tore down Gotham's wide roads, its speed steadily climbing. Just as Bruce pushed the car to 140 mph, several masked gunmen burst from a corner, their dark muzzles aimed straight at the vehicle. Bruce's first instinct was to wrench the steering wheel. "Professor, get down," he yelled to the passenger seat. Schiller, however, remained unruffled, his voice as calm as if he were asking a question in class. "I am quite certain," he said, "that the vehicle your butler ordered for you comes equipped with bulletproof glass and tires." He paused. "If you wish to ascertain who is behind this, you could feign losing control of the car and knock yourself out. Perhaps you might acquire some interesting clues in a moment." Bruce understood instantly. They were here for him. He hesitated. He could take the risk, but Schiller was just a civilian. As if reading his mind, Schiller said coolly, "I don't think you need to concern yourself with me. I never gamble with my own life." Bruce hesitated no longer. He yanked the wheel hard. The car screeched across the road, spinning several times before its rear slammed into a lamppost. He slumped over the steering wheel, and Schiller fainted in unison. The kidnappers rushed forward, clapping hoods and handcuffs on both men before shoving them into a van. When the hoods were removed, they were in a derelict room. Schiller and Bruce both feigned looks of shock. But a second later, when the university president swaggered in wearing his work suit, Schiller's shock was genuine. Shock at the man's sheer stupidity. He truly had not expected the mastermind to reveal himself so brazenly to his hostages. And sure enough, the portly president began to lecture them, laying out his perfect, evil plan in excruciating detail, from the prepared body double to the specifics of the kidnapping, confessing to every crime. After the man had committed every mistake a cinematic villain could possibly make, Schiller finally lost his patience. He looked at Bruce and calmly uttered 3 words. "Bruce, do it." Before the words had faded, Bruce exploded into motion like a cheetah, the handcuffs proving no restraint at all. In less than 2 seconds, the president was pinned to the floor, the cuffs now fastened around his own wrists. The gunmen outside the door rushed in, only to be neutralized one by one with clean, efficient movements. When Gordon and his team arrived, the president was still screaming for Victor to come and save him. Gordon just looked at him coldly. "Sorry, the commissioner was arrested last night while trying to destroy evidence in the archives. I caught him myself. He smashed the security camera, but Harvey had already placed another one in." there while he was organizing some clutter. We have it all on tape, pal. Bruce dusted himself off, his gaze distant. It seems they've played their last card. Now, we have one more to deal with. Schiller retrieved a file from his briefcase and handed it to Bruce. Just as we planned, he said, I've acquired a detailed map of that chemical plant, along with its personnel deployment. I believe it's time for a certain eccentric in a batsuit to get to work.